There are moments when obedience feels invisible. You keep praying, you keep trusting, you keep choosing what is right, even when everything around you feels uncertain, and yet, nothing seems to change, especially when it comes to your children. You look at their lives, their struggles, their choices, and deep down you wonder if your faith is making any difference at all. You don't say it out loud, but you feel it. God, do you see what I'm doing? Do you see how hard I'm trying? Because obedience isn't always loud. It's not always celebrated. Most of the time, it's quiet. It's choosing patience when you're exhausted. It's speaking life when you're worried. It's trusting God when fear is knocking at your door. It's kneeling in prayer when no one else is watching. And in those hidden moments, it can feel like you're standing alone. But you're not alone. And more than that, you're not unseen. Right now, in ways you cannot measure, God is responding to your obedience. Not just in your life, but in the lives of your children. Even when you don't see immediate change, even when things seem delayed, heaven is not silent. God is not waiting to act. He is already moving, already positioning, already lifting in ways that go far beyond what your eyes can perceive. Your obedience is not small. It is not meaningless. It is not being ignored. Every prayer, every act of faith, every decision to trust God instead of giving up, it is building something. It is creating a foundation that your children will stand on, even if they don't realize it yet. And here is the truth that many people miss. God often begins His greatest work in places you cannot see. While you're wondering why things haven't changed yet, God is working beneath the surface. While you're questioning if your obedience matters, God is using it as a pathway to reach your children in ways you never could on your own. So don't let the silence fool you. Don't let the waiting convince you that nothing is happening, because something is happening. And by the end of this message, you're going to see it differently. Number 1. God sees the obedience no one else notices. There is a kind of obedience that no one applauds. No one posts about it. No one even knows it happened. It's the decision you made to stay calm when you could have reacted. It's the prayer you whispered over your child when they walked out the door. It's the nights you stayed up worrying, but still chose to trust God instead of giving in to fear. This is the kind of obedience that feels hidden, almost invisible, and if you're not careful, you can start to believe that because no one sees it, it doesn't matter. But that is not how God works. Scripture tells us clearly that what is done in secret is seen by God. In Matthew 6:6, Jesus speaks about going into your room, closing the door, and praying to your Father who is unseen, and your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. That means every quiet act of obedience you've carried out has been fully seen, fully known, and fully valued by God. You may feel overlooked by people, but you are never overlooked by heaven. And here's where it becomes powerful. God doesn't just see your obedience. He responds to it. Not always in the timing you expect, and not always in the way you imagine, but He never ignores it. Your obedience is like a seed planted in the spiritual realm. It may be buried, it may be out of sight, but it is not inactive. It is growing. Sometimes the enemy will try to convince you that your obedience is pointless because you haven't seen results yet, especially when it comes to your children. You've been praying, you've been believing, and still things look the same. But the absence of visible change does not mean the absence of divine activity. God is working in layers. He sees the things you've done in secret, and He is weaving them into something greater than you can currently understand. Every moment you chose faith over fear, every time you trusted instead of controlling, every time you surrendered instead of forcing an outcome, God marked it, and He is using it, not just for you, but for your children. Because when God sees obedience, He doesn't waste it. He multiplies it. He carries its impact forward. What you did in private is creating effects in places you cannot yet see. So don't measure your obedience by what people notice. Don't measure it by how quickly things change. Measure it by the fact that God has seen every single moment, and He is already responding. Number 2. Your obedience creates a covering over your children. There is a spiritual reality that many people overlook. Your obedience does not stop with you. It extends. It reaches beyond your personal life and begins to touch those connected to you, especially your children. When you walk in obedience to God, you are not just making a personal decision. You are stepping into alignment with Him, and that alignment creates something powerful, a covering. Think about Job. The Bible tells us that he would regularly offer sacrifices on behalf of his children, saying, "Perhaps my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." Job didn't wait for visible problems. He moved in obedience proactively. And because of that, there was a layer of spiritual protection surrounding his family that they didn't even fully understand. That's what your obedience is doing right now. Even if your children are not fully walking with God, even if they are making choices you don't agree with, even if they seem distant from everything you've taught them, your obedience is still creating a covering over their lives. It doesn't mean they won't face challenges. It doesn't mean they won't go through their own journey. But it does mean they are not walking alone. There is a divine influence, a quiet protection, a spiritual hedge that exists because of your alignment with God. And here's something important to understand. God honors alignment, not perfection. You don't have to be a perfect parent for God to move. You don't have to get everything right. What matters is your heart posture, your willingness to obey, to trust, to follow Him even when it's hard. That's what activates His presence in your life and by extension in your children's lives. Sometimes you may feel powerless, like there's only so much you can do. And in a natural sense, that's true. You can't control every decision your children make. You can't force them to choose the right path. But through obedience, you are giving God access to work in ways that go beyond your limitations. Your obedience becomes an invitation for God to step in. So while you're praying, while you're trusting, while you're choosing to follow God even when it's difficult, something is forming around your children. A covering, a protection, a presence, and even if they don't see it yet, one day, they will walk into the reality of what your obedience has been building all along. Number 3, God works through generations, not just individuals. God never thinks in small timelines. While we often focus on what is happening right now, God is working across generations. His plans are not limited to a single moment or even a single lifetime. When He sees your obedience, He doesn't just consider how it affects you today. He sees how it will shape your children tomorrow and even beyond that. In Exodus 26, God speaks about showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love Him and keep His commandments. That means your obedience is not isolated. It is part of a much larger story, one that stretches forward in ways you may never fully grasp in this moment. Right now, you might be looking at your children and wondering why things haven't shifted yet. You've been faithful, you've been praying, you've been doing your best to follow God. But what you're seeing doesn't seem to reflect what you've been believing for, and that can be discouraging. But God is not limited to what you can currently see. When you obey God, you are planting seeds that carry generational impact. Some of those seeds will grow quickly, others will take time. Some will not fully bloom until later seasons of your children's lives, but that does not make them any less real. Think about Abraham. God made a covenant with him that extended far beyond his own life. The fullness of that promise unfolded through generations. Abraham did not see everything that God spoke come to pass, but his obedience set it in motion. That is the same principle at work in your life. Your obedience is breaking patterns, shifting spiritual atmospheres, and creating new pathways for your children to walk in. Even if there have been struggles in your family line, cycles of fear, doubt, brokenness, your decision to follow God is interrupting those patterns. You are not just living differently, you are changing direction for those who come after you. And sometimes, that kind of change doesn't look dramatic at first. It looks like small shifts, subtle differences, a new kind of thinking, a new kind of response. But over time, those small shifts become a completely different outcome. So don't measure your obedience only by immediate results. Understand that you are part of something generational. God is using your faithfulness to build a legacy that your children will step into, even if they don't recognize it yet. What you are doing matters more than this moment. It is echoing into their future. Number 4. The season of silence is not the absence of movement. One of the hardest parts of walking in obedience is the silence that often follows. You pray, you believe, you trust, and then nothing seems to happen. No visible change, no clear sign, just waiting. And in that silence, questions start to rise. You begin to wonder if God is really moving, or if things will ever shift, especially when it comes to your children. You see their struggles, their decisions, their direction, and it can feel like your prayers are hitting a wall. But silence does not mean God is absent, and it certainly does not mean He is inactive. Throughout the Bible, some of God's greatest works happened in seasons that looked quiet on the surface. Take Joseph, for example. There were years of his life where everything seemed to be going in the wrong direction. Betrayal, slavery, prison. If you looked only at the surface, it would seem like God wasn't moving at all. But behind the scenes, God was positioning him. Every step, every delay, every hidden moment was part of a larger plan that would eventually lead to elevation and purpose. That's how God often works. He builds before He reveals. He prepares before He promotes. He moves beneath the surface before anything becomes visible. So while you are waiting, while you are wondering, God is still at work, shaping hearts, aligning circumstances, opening doors that you cannot yet see. And this is especially true when it comes to your children. There may be things happening in their hearts right now that you don't know about. Seeds being planted, thoughts being challenged, moments where God is quietly reaching them in ways that don't show up outwardly yet. Transformation doesn't always happen instantly. Often it begins internally, long before it becomes visible externally. The danger is giving up in the silence, mistaking delay for denial, assuming that because you don't see change, nothing is happening. But the truth is, some of the most powerful movements of God happen in the unseen. So don't let the quiet season shake your faith. Don't let the waiting cause you to step back from obedience. If anything, this is the moment to lean in even more. Because while it may feel still to you, heaven is not still. God is moving. And when the time is right, what has been happening in silence will become impossible to ignore. Number 5. Your faith is teaching your children even when they don't listen. There are moments when it feels like your children aren't hearing anything you say. You give advice, you share truth, you try to guide them, and it seems like it goes in one ear and out the other. That can be frustrating, even discouraging. It can make you question whether anything you're doing is actually making a difference. But what shapes a child most is not just what they hear, it's what they see. Long before your children fully understand your words, they are watching your life. They are observing how you respond under pressure, how you handle fear, how you react when things don't go your way. They are paying attention to your consistency, your integrity, your faith when life is hard. And even if they don't acknowledge it, it is leaving an imprint. Proverbs 22:6 reminds us to train up a child in the way they should go, and when they are older, they will not depart from it. That doesn't always mean immediate results. It doesn't mean they won't have their own journey or make their own decisions. But it does mean that what has been planted in them has not disappeared. Your obedience is teaching them what faith looks like in real life. Every time you choose to pray instead of panic, you are showing them where to turn in difficult moments. Every time you forgive when it's hard, you are teaching them the power of grace. Every time you trust God when the outcome is uncertain, you are giving them a living example of what it means to walk by faith. And here's the part that many parents miss. Seeds don't grow the moment they are planted. There is a process. There is time beneath the surface where nothing appears to be happening. But that doesn't mean the seed is dead. It means it is developing roots. Your children may not reflect your faith right now, but that does not mean they haven't absorbed it. In the right moment, in the right season, those seeds will begin to rise. What you lived in front of them will come back to them, sometimes in ways you never expected. So don't stop living your faith just because you don't see immediate results. Don't become discouraged if they seem uninterested or distant. Your obedience is speaking louder than your words ever could, and one day what they've seen in you will guide them when they need it most. Number 6. God can reach your children in ways you cannot. There comes a point where you realize there are limits to what you can do as a parent. You can guide, you can teach, you can pray, but you cannot control every decision your children make, and that realization can feel heavy, especially when you see them walking in a direction that concerns you. This is where obedience takes on a deeper meaning, because sometimes obedience is not about doing more. It's about releasing control and trusting God. The truth is, God knows your children in a way you never can. He understands their thoughts, their struggles, their wounds, and their purpose. He knows exactly what will reach them, exactly what will speak to their hearts, exactly what will bring them back when they drift. Think about Hannah. She prayed for a child, and when God gave her Samuel, she didn't hold on tightly. She surrendered him back to God. That was not an easy act. It required trust at a deep level. But through that surrender, Samuel stepped into the calling God had prepared for him. Or consider the story of the prodigal son. The father didn't chase him down or force him to return. There was a moment where he had to let him go, trusting that something deeper would bring him back. And it did. In the same way, there are moments when your greatest act of obedience is stepping back and allowing God to work. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you stop praying. It means you shift your trust. You recognize that God is not limited by what you can see or do. He can place the right people in your children's lives. He can create the right moments. He can speak to them in ways that go beyond human words. And often, He does His deepest work when you release the need to control the outcome. Your obedience opens the door, but God is the one who walks through it. So if you've been carrying the weight of trying to fix everything, trying to force change, trying to make everything happen on your own, this is your reminder. You don't have to do it alone. God is already reaching your children. In conversations you don't hear, in moments you don't see, in ways you may not understand right now. Trust Him there. Number 7. The lifting is already happening, even if you can't see it yet. Right now, it may not look like anything is changing. You may still see the same patterns, the same struggles, the same unanswered prayers when it comes to your children. And if you focus only on what is visible, it's easy to feel discouraged. But God does not begin His work in the visible. He begins in the unseen. Long before something shifts on the outside, it is already shifting on the inside. Hearts are being softened. Thoughts are being challenged. Paths are being redirected. Opportunities are being arranged. Protection is being placed where you didn't even know it was needed. These are the kinds of movements that don't make noise, but they are real. The lifting has already started. It may not look like elevation yet, but it looks like preservation. It looks like delays that are actually protection. It looks like closed doors that are quietly keeping your children from harm. It looks like moments where things could have gone worse, but didn't. That is not coincidence. That is God's hand at work. Sometimes we expect lifting to be obvious. Success, breakthrough, visible transformation. But often, God lifts by stabilizing before He elevates. He secures the foundation before He raises the structure. And while that process is happening, it can feel like nothing is moving, but everything is moving. If you could see what God sees, you would realize how much has already been set in motion because of your obedience. The prayers you thought were unanswered are still active. The faith you held onto is still producing results. The decisions you made to trust God instead of giving up have already shifted things in ways that haven't fully appeared yet. So don't let what you see right now define what is actually happening. You are not behind, your children are not forgotten, and your obedience has not been wasted. You are in the middle of a process where God is aligning, preparing, and yes, lifting. And when it becomes visible, it will not feel random. It will feel like a moment that was built over time. Conclusion: you may never fully realize, in this moment, how powerful your obedience truly is. It doesn't always feel significant. It doesn't always come with immediate results. And sometimes, it feels like you're giving more than you're seeing. But heaven measures differently. Every act of obedience you've made, every prayer, every sacrifice, every moment you chose to trust God instead of walking away, it has all been seen. It has all been counted, and it has all been used, not just for you, but for your children. Even now, God is moving in their lives in ways you cannot fully see. He is positioning them, protecting them, reaching them, and preparing them, and He is doing it through the doorway of your obedience. So don't stop now. Stay faithful in the quiet moments. Stay consistent when it feels like nothing is changing. Stay obedient, even when it's hard, because what you are doing is not just affecting today, it is shaping what comes next. One day you will look at your children and see things you prayed for. You will recognize moments that once felt impossible, and you will understand that God was working all along, even in the silence, even in the waiting. Until then, keep trusting Him, because He is lifting more than you can see.